Good morning and good evening everyone. I am here to bring you a little bit of a building video. I have been told a few times that a lot of people enjoy my builds or the builds that I've been a part of, and they would like to know how I do what I do. So first off, I would just like a little bit of a disclaimer that these are not specifically my building tips that I have. However, I have collected these tips over time, either from Jenny or other builders or just watching some videos or whatever. This is just my list that I have on me, and this list is something that I've been making for a little bit, but not everything is on it. I might have to stop and, write down a note if I notice something during the video, but I will try my best to have everything in the list as I can have it straightforward. From there, the next disclaimer is that we will be using a couple mods today. I have SWEM installed because this is the official Sequestrian server. However, we will be using SWDM and SWLM. For all those not familiar, SWLM is a lighting mod, and it's a lighting mod made by Storm Equestrian Mod, which is, the main one. It's made by us, and it adds all of the vanilla blocks, but with a lighting version, so you can easily have light within your builds without using too many torches. And then we'll be using SWDM as well. Neither of these mods are required to do any of the building or building tips. I just personally prefer them, especially because SWDM includes a lot of the blocks that I think we should have in game in vanilla already, like leaf stairs, glass slabs, some different sand types, just different blocks here or there. So if you see us using these blocks, it is because it is inside this mod, but they are not required to do whatever I will be mentioning to do today. Alrighty, so here that was sitting behind me is a demonstration build. It's not much, just took me a few minutes. It's a nice survival build, but it's not exactly the best, especially when you're going creative or trying to go super fancy or really nice. It's a build that does the job. However, this is one of the kind of build that a lot of people come to me and ask for help in improving. With this, we will use this to kind of help us demonstrate the rules and little tidbits that I will have to give you today. From there, the first thing you'll notice is I do not have shaders on, and that is for a reason. When I build, I do not have shaders, I do not have resource packs, and I do not have texture packs. This is specific. The reason is because every good vanilla build can look good in shaders, but most good shader builds don't look good in vanilla. That could just be my opinion, and that's okay. However, from what I've seen, I do believe that it is true. This could look really nice in shaders when you have really nice sun lines coming through here and like the glass is glowing a little bit, and then you have like your leaves moving, etc. But in vanilla, this doesn't look too fancy. So that's one of my first tidbits is make sure to turn that off. That way the building looks good for everyone. The only reason I would not turn off a texture pack would be if you're building for someone on a server that specifically has a texture pack, like a lot of equestrian servers, they have texture packs already pre-built. You need to make sure that it looks good in the texture pack you're working with. But other than that, if you're not working with a very specific texture pack for a very specific reason, I would highly recommend working with whatever you can in vanilla in order to make sure it looks good for everyone. From there, the next point that I have is reference picks. We will not be using reference pick today because I would like to just do a basic build and show how even the most basic or pre-built of builds can still look good with the tidbits I'm about to teach you today. However, reference. Always reference. Always reference for every reason. The references are good things to do. So I highly recommend. We're only not doing it for this video, but otherwise we always have reference videos, especially for our server, for the staff. We require it. Depending on how heavily you reference, always make sure to credit the original builder. From there, we will go with color palette. One of the biggest things I see people struggle with is the fact that they don't have a block palette to start out with, and so they don't really know where to go or what to do, and they just kind of look at it and be like, colors. So over here, we have a little example of these are the current four for the build. So it's just the spruce log, spruce planks, dark oak planks, and then we have the normal glass. And the build is a little basic. Let's go with that. It's a little, he does his job and tries his best. Let's just leave that there. However, I do recommend a couple more. I recommend about 3 main colors, like we have here. We have our spruce, we have our stone, and then we have a white terracotta. That's not white terracotta, that is white concrete, excuse me. And then we have our couple supplementary colors, which would be our dark oak and just normal spruce. And then we have our glass color. I highly recommend using light gray glass instead of normal glass. And the reason for this is when you're using this blue outline is incredibly bright compared versus in these it kind of goes away a little bit more because the background is a little more shaded versus the line itself. So this disappears a little bit more, and in shaders, the gray always looks really nice, or you could see through it as if normal regular glass. So it should work out for everyone and make everyone happy, shaders or no shaders. So always go for your block palette first. If you're not very good with color theory or picking out block palettes, neither am I. So I go to just blockpalette.com, I believe that's what it is, or I just Google block palette and it takes me to whatever it is. It is specifically built for Minecraft, and they usually have sets of 6 like this, where you'll have like 3 main colors, 2 supplementary colors, and then they'll give you like a glass or an additional color beyond that to help really pop that decor, depending on what you would like to do. From there, the next thing that we would do is kind of explain a little bit about color choice. So while I did say go to the block palette website, however, there is a note that you'll need to know just in case. If you are choosing a palette, always make sure that you very carefully choose said palette. These blocks have tones to them. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, so it's birch, it is wood, so what? Okay, well, it has a lot of color to it, whether you're looking too closely or not, it does. So even if you're looking at this birch, it has that gray in it, has the black, it has the white, but it also has little touches of pink to it, which you can either use to your advantage, or if you don't know that it's there, it could work against you. Or like this right here, this birch is yellow. Very, very yellow. It's not yellow concrete, that's true, but it is yellow toned. And that yellow tone can affect the build that you're looking to make. Just like spruce here is red toned. Oak here is a little less of yellow toned, but it is still yellow toned like birch is. So that's why oak can be a little harder to build with. A lot of people go for oak because it's, you know, the main wood that you normally see. However, it has a lot of yellow in it. It can be very difficult. That's why a lot of people choose spruce. Spruce is a nice brown tone that can go with a lot of things, and it actually has red in it. So it's not like the brightest of red, but it does have red tones. I'm just going to put that up there. So it might be a little hard to see from there, but it is in there. From there, my next point for the beginning part would be my absolute rule. My absolute rule, no matter what, among anything ever being built at any time on my server, or that I'm building, or that I request that my builders build, no matter what, is the fact that the brain comes pre-packed with information. Be mindful of this and use it to your advantage. Some people know what I'm about to talk about and some people don't. It's called the Uncanny Valley. The Uncanny Valley is where your brain knows something, and whether you know it knows it or not, it still knows it. So when you go against that knowledge, it can really make your brain unhappy. And an unhappy brain, a confused brain, always says no. So this may not matter all that much, because like you can see here, like this build isn't bad. But once we go through all of my building tips, you'll see that there's some details in here that you didn't realize that would be better until you see that it's better, and then you never really want this kind of build ever again. So from there, I'll give you a little bit of an example. So we have a stone wall here, and then we have oak. So normally you wouldn't think this is too much of an issue. I mean, it's a block on top of a block, it looks okay, it's not really a problem. Well, it is a problem because of the weight. Your brain will tell you that these stone blocks are very, very heavy. And if I do something like this, your brain will be a little bit happier. So you don't really notice that, okay, well, this doesn't really mean too much, but then as soon as you have the next option available, then you're like, okay, I see what you mean now. This is definitely different, and this definitely makes my brain a lot happier that lighter wood is on top of very strong stone. This right here is going to be our biggest example. There's some things, like I said, that people don't understand or don't know that they know until you go against it. So right here, as you see, like we have a daylight sensor that is just in the air for no reason. And this will bug a lot of people because it's just floating there. So we either need a reason for it to be there, something like that, or get rid of it. Or place it where this one was in the first place. Or either way, just make it so it's not floating. This right here, we have these beams. These beams going random directions for no reason. If we align them a little bit better, it'll make your brain a little bit happier. They don't always have to be the same direction. You could even do like that. I wouldn't suggest it because it doesn't exactly make sense, but you know, whatever you want to do. But even if, it still matches and looks nicer than going multiple directions. The next idea is that like this building is just a little building and it's fine until I knock out the legs. As soon as I knock out the legs, then we're very unhappy looking at this build. It looks like it's going to tip over, brain gets unhappy, and we need to change that. You know, physics in Minecraft, we don't exactly have that too incredibly much, and that may not bother some people. However, I'll show you a few other things that would bug people. Like this. Yeah, double door in the corner. Great. Please don't do that. A chest in the wall is possible, but will not make people happy. Just a lantern in the wall above the chest will make your brain unhappy. And probably put the chest inside. Fix it, please. There we go. So even, I would prefer like even just a little bit of a thing so you can at least, you know, stand somewhere before you try to get in the door, but I mean, that's up to you, really. You can see this little bit of roof here where it's heavy stone, like stone brick, and it's just there. It doesn't look like it's connected. It doesn't look like it has any supports at all. So instead, I'd probably do something like this, less heavy from the base, and then just do a little bit of something like that to help support it, and now it's not so bad. So that's not exactly necessary because it's a little bit shorter, up to you. Another example would be something like this, where you have heavy cobblestone walls that are very bulky, and you have it on top of wood. The weight distribution doesn't exactly make sense, and again, physics don't exactly matter, but your brain says it does. Like I said, these things aren't the biggest thing on the planet, but they add up, and they add up quickly. And if you would like people to like your builds, or like your own builds, and understand why you like your builds. Alrighty, that completes part 1. Part 2, we will go into building, and Bodhi will be helping me with that section. Alrighty, now we are to the actual building part of the video. So here we have Bodhi who's going to help us out today, and we are just going to start from the top. The foundation. So normally I would lay a foundation in the ground. It doesn't have to be in the ground, it doesn't have to be nothing. It's mainly just the idea that you have something to kind of outline what your building is supposed to look like. Normally I always do odd numbers. Minecraft is built based off of one block, and if everything is based off of one block, then having twos kinds of throws in the mix. You can build in even numbers, and obviously there's nothing stopping you. However, I do recommend getting used to odds because it makes your life just a little bit easier in the long run. How about let's add a little bit of a porch, and I'm making that 3 wide, so that would come about here. And then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's fine. So we'll go up ahead here, and I'll do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And let's just cut this here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And let's just cut this line there. So part of this that also helps as well is you can see that I'm doing mainly 7s. I find it to be a very pleasant size. Oh, excuse me. I find it to be a very pleasant size, and if you notice, the beams will match up. Depending on wherever I would like to do beams, they will match up square, which also very much helps when it comes to something of the sort. That leads us to our next point. I do prefer to have things taller. So the taller you go, and not saying like go up into the sky, but you only require about 2 blocks for head height, but that doesn't mean it's comfortable. So if I have something like, let's say, I'll do an example while she's building. This is possible, but it doesn't really feel nice. And while we can go 1 more up, this does feel much more comfortable, but it's not much room to do much decoration in. So if I do something of this sort, I don't exactly have much room to decorate with, versus the wall that Bodhi is making over here. I have a lot of room. If I have this wall here, it's a little bit easier to decorate because I can do more with it. So I just have a little bit more room to make something just a little bit nicer versus something over here where I'm essentially out of room already. There's definitely a difference between the amount of space we have to work with because we have to take up 1 block per item we are trying to design with. We're just going to lift this up 1 because we're going to add a little bit of a thing here. Usually I like the beams to go all the way through. Okay, so now we're just a little bit taller, so when we come here, I'll do something like one of our other blocks was the dark oak to decorate with. So I'll do a little bit of a dark oak in here, and then we would do the roof. So once she's done with the floor, and then we would work on the roof. So the roof can be a basic triangle like this one, but there's a lot of different shapes that you can do instead that would make it a little bit more interesting to look at. Like we said, taller is your friend, and with that taller, we can use something to our advantage, like tall windows. So a lot of people do windows that are usually short and long. So while this is nice, it makes your build look a little short and kind of stubby, especially like that one over there. You don't really see all the height nearly as much, because we're going to make our windows tall and thin. And something like this, we can even do 3 of them instead if we wanted to, like that. And now you really notice how tall that wall is. So we're going to have to edit this though, because this will be a porch, but we will come back to these. The windows normally go in after the roof, as the roof will affect where the windows are placed. From there, we can talk more about interesting jutouts. So we can see here that this has a little bit of something to it, but it's not that crazy or not that kind of all that interesting. So instead what we're going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of a stair for support, and then I'm going to add a little bit of something like this. A nice bay window. Let's see, we can actually make it a little bit taller because I forgot that this is actually off the ground. There we go. Just going to add in a little bit of a white block here. Just for something interesting to see, something interesting to look at, and probably add some sort of window into it. Something like that. There's a specific kind of window that I like to do that I will show everyone today. It's one of my favorites. And it's very good for horse stalls as well, as it keeps them from being able to get out as well. So I will just go over here for a moment. So I'll do something like this, where let's say we have a wall. I'll just make it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. I'll just make it a 6 block wall, 2 tall, and then make the rest of it. First I'm going to make my window, however this goes. And then I'm going to use a slab, and this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's okay because this is my absolute favorite that I'm going to show you guys. So then this is technically 1 block, but it still looks nice. And then you have the half slab so the horses can't jump out. I'm actually going to take a second and I'm going to make this a little bit wider so I can show you guys a little bit more. Going to go a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's okay. We don't want our windows to be chubby. Chubby windows make the build feel short, if you remember. And tall. So then what I'll do is I'll do something like this to round out the corner. Something like that, and then probably a slab up top. And then I'll use something like a trap door. We have the whitewash trap door, which is the one that I like to use. That's by SWEM. And just line these bottom pieces here. And just a nice gentle arch. Looks really nice. You can usually do like plants or something on the side. And it's a gentle arch that your animals can't get out of, but it feels very light, open, and enjoyable. She is working on the roof. She's doing more of the triangle shape, but we can add to it in a bit. Here, the next thing on the list is adding pillars. So adding pillars is usually good for just really adding in some depth. So a lot of people like to do a very general pillar where they'll do the corners all the way up. However, I've seen that this can add a little bit of complication because it takes up a lot of space. So what I personally like to do is I like to add in something that looks like it's supposed to go. So just a little bit of something to add just a little bit of detail and depth to the build, so it's not so flat. As you can see, this entire wall is incredibly flat, so I will be adding this to each one. We have a lot of very old builds from when I very first started actually building myself. At the beginning, I was the only builder on Sequestrian, and It shows. Then Jenny joined the team and she started making fun of me for being a bad builder. So from there, I slowly learned how to get better, and now I have Jenny's seal of approval. Oh, yep, she's adding a little bit more of a gable to make it a little bit more interesting. I would suggest something more along the lines of this. Doot, 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 doot. Okay, so even just a little bit more of a jut out instead of the straight roof gives it just a little bit more interesting of a look from the front. We're trying to keep the video short, and it's already running a little bit long, so we are going to move on from there. The next thing on the list was changing the roof shape, which she is working on at the moment, using structural beams to your advantage. As you can see, we have a lot of structural beams on the inside. So what I would do is I would use these here to kind of add just a little bit of something to the roof. So just a little bit extra there. These don't always have to perfectly match. You can always do something a little bit different. Or you can go straight across and then have some design, something like this. And now we have some interesting beams to make the walls a little less flat. From there, lining the roof with an overhang of a complementary block. I ran into a wall. Hello, wall. So as you can see, we don't have any overhang, and I'm sure some people have been screaming, add an overhang! Well, a lot of people don't know to actually do that. So I've been waiting until we got to that point, but yes, we will add an overhang onto the build. And adding an overhang is just one of the smaller details that really help out. And please excuse us in this video, we are trying our best to do our best, but we are so used to our own building rules on Sequestrian that like, I keep trying to, like, autofill some of these things that I know that we would normally do, and I'm trying to, like, keep myself from doing that. It's okay if they don't perfectly match, because a lot of roofs in real life do that as well. Always make sure to have an underside to at least this side of the overhang when you do it, so that way it doesn't look like it's just kind of floating there. So, like, if we do this side, and I add that one, and add this one, so you can see that this one is pretty different than the other. It kind of looks like it's just lacking something on the underneath side, and that's because it is. And that's what we have just added on this side. So we're going to add it again to this one. You don't have to use slabs on the outside, of course, but that's just something that I prefer to do. So it's a little bit more out and not as thick, in my opinion. But, I mean, do whatever you would like to do. Alrighty, so that alone gives us a little bit more interesting of a build, something nicer to look at than the original. So we're only about halfway there, but we are getting through. One of the things that I always like to use is you can see that this is just a straight wall here, and it's just a lot of one color. What I would do is a human-sized half wall, or in-game a player-sized half wall. So I don't mean like a half wall as in literally half this wall. I mean more of a half wall as in up to your hips, like you see in real life. So from in there, we have that half wall, but you can use the half walls inside as well. We can have a little bit of a half wall here, a little bit of a trapdoor coming off of it. So now we have like a nice cute little counter. Maybe I can go here and just put like a little bit of a wall. And so it's a half wall that separates this piece of your kitchen. And so you just have a little separation. It's not a separation of the entire house, but it's still pretty cute and just adds just a little bit more to making the building a little bit more interesting. Arches are your friend. So this is the next point that I was going to show you. And there we go. And so that just little bit of an arch just makes it just a little bit more gentle. There's many different ways of trying to make arches, but a simple case, this is the one. If you want to look at more types of arches, you are free to go to, Google or whatever. There's plenty of ideas there. There we go. That looks a little bit more fitting, yeah? So I normally like to separate rooms out. Like this right here obviously has a room separation in itself, but I like to add just a little bit extra of something. So like let's say we have a wall here that separates, I don't know, the bedroom. Great, okay, so we have a bedroom, we have a double door for the bedroom. I'll usually use something like cobble if I'm using stone brick or just a matching block of some kind, and I'll usually just line the rooms. Let's see, let's do some of that instead. And I'll usually just go along the outside. It may look like a lot at the moment, but when you go to decorate, which I'm not a decorator, Jenny's our decorator, so she would go to decorate. but when she goes to do that, it will actually look nicer because normally when you decorate, you line things against the wall. So like, let's say we simulate making a desk here. It doesn't look as lined anymore because she would be putting something down. That completes the second part. Now we would go on to detailing, the part that I've been wanting to do pretty much the entire time. So part of what's going on on the inside is make sure that the underside of the roof actually has something to it. So one detail of this that I would like to mention is dark oak roofs look very nice, but they're very dark. This build already looks very, very dark. So what I would do is I would normally line the roof. Even if it's all just stairs, that's okay, as long as you're lining the roof with something that's lighter than the actual dark oak, because it'll lighten the entire build and not make it seem so dark and dreary. And so just that little bit lightens the room, so it's not so dark up top, but there's still some decoration up there that makes it feel like it had attention to it. So if you can see the difference between this ceiling and then this ceiling, where it's just kind of existing and it's just kind of there. So it's kind of like the same way that you're doing the lining on the roof. Whenever I would have a roof of some sort, I would always add some sort of liner underneath. So even if it's just, you know, one block underneath on the edge, at least do the edge that's against the wall. So even if you don't do the entire roof, even if you just do a little bit of this on the edges, it does make it look like you put just a little bit more detail, care, or love into it. So the reason I say this, and the reason I'm like, it's not just a simple point, like I'm trying to get this across because it does matter. So if we have something like this, we're gonna have to put something in the background, but this is still the roof. So the roof will look like this on the inside. We have a clash between the wall itself and the blocks trying to go underneath it. So obviously we can't place a full block here, so we have to do something like this. And even if we have an overhang that looks kind of funky on both the inside and the out. Something like that, again, it looks like detail, it looks like you're putting extra love into it, and you're actually covering up that issue with the slabs. We're going into more of the outside, so I would like to spend a little time to finish this part here. Okay, so I'm probably going to go across here, probably going to go across here. I'll even add a little bit of something in here because, like, you can see that this roof is just a little bit plain. So I would like to, in the center, just add a little bit higher of a little thing here, whatever you want to call it. Up one. There, something like that. And just something as simple as that can make this little awning just a little bit more interesting to look at. There we go. Always make sure to have a flat wall because you're going to need something to place something against, and also so you don't make your build look too busy, because if your build has just too many windows or too many things all the time, it can really kind of start to mess up what you're looking at or what you're trying to do. From there, let's do a little bit of a fence. So let's say we're just as an example, let's say we're going to do something like this just out front, just to have a nice little walk here. What I usually do is I usually have some sort of block. Like on the inside we have just a little bit of detailing of this cobble. I'll usually put something underneath these to kind of make them look like they have some foundation, or they were placed at one point to do whatever job that they're to do. Something like that. Just to add a little bit of something underneath so they're not just placed out in the wilderness for no reason. And when in doubt, greenery. And because of SWDM, it actually adds like stairs and walls and slabs of the same kinds. So first I usually start with just placing an amount somewhere and just a nice greenery. Doesn't really do anything except just look pleasant. You can do different ways of them. Alright, fence instead, and then let's try something like that, and then I'm just going to leave it plain. I'm not. So I'm going to add just some greenery here. And the very, very, very biggest one that I've been avoiding this whole time, and it's been getting in my way, is detailing. The actual, like, legitimate biggest part of detailing, which is the buttons, trapdoors, fences, stairs, slabs, and more. Just all of it. So I'm going to go through, this is what I've been wanting to do for a hot minute. Just going through here, doot and doot, just to kind of vary it up a little bit. So I might do something a little bit like this, so it's a little easier to see. And we have SWDM, so I can add more stairs in here. So we can just have a little bit of something else up there. dark oak. Just adding a little bit of something. I'm going to add this here so it looks just a little bit more... Oh, it kind of looks like it has feet. Never mind. I don't want feet. When in doubt, add greenery. Always looks nice. You can never fail with greenery. Something like that. Just a little bit more greenery out front. This one needs the detailing to it. Flying up here is really flat. It's just straight as a board right across. I'm going to add stairs all the way around. Might even add a little bit of an extra bump. And what I wanted to do in here was add a little bit of detailing. Now I have yet to add buttons. I don't want to do overkill on this build though, so I'm probably not going to do too many of them. While I'm doing a check around the build, I will make a note on consistency. Always, always, always consistency. Double check everything you've done to make sure they all match. No matter what you do, they should all match unless it's an artistic decision. If it's specifically an artistic decision, that's up to you. You know what? I'm just going to add a little lip to this. I was considering it a minute ago and I wasn't sure if I wanted it, but I think I want it. So one of the last things I would like to mention is roads. How I normally do roads is I usually do a spacing of 3 minimum. You can do less than that, but I mean, it's up to you. While I may only make something that doesn't look too wide for wherever I'm going, I usually will make it 3 wide in the end, no matter how it's being done. So as you can see that, like, this is technically 3 wide. And so this is a 2 wide little entry, but then this is another 3 wide over here. There we go. So a little bit of a path. You can do whatever you would like with your path. If you don't like that certain one that I just made right now, I mean, that's up to you. You change whatever you would like to do. The bigger the road, the bigger the palette normally, but I would only max out at about 7. Even like a road that's like 15 wide, I wouldn't do actual more blocks than 7. I would just do variations. And the very last point I would like to make, don't let the rings of logs show unless it's a design choice. There we go, and there we go. So it looks a little bit better. Of course, there's certain reasons why you might want to have the normal spruce log. I think that is about it. As you can tell, we have come a long way. With the builder tips that I have discussed today, we have gone from a build that looks a lot like this, very similar, to something that looks like this instead. And we did not plan this build. We just started randomly doing it, just following the tips, just doing what we do. I'm not saying every build you have will turn out just like this, or that it may not take practice, because it will take a little practice getting used to the rules. But in my opinion, if you're not sure where your build might be going wrong or why you don't like it, it might help to look at all of those builder tips and just go down the line and see what you've done, and maybe those tips will help you out a little bit. And also, thank you to Evelyn Blueskin for making me this skin. Just wanted to shout that out. It is totally cute. Thank you, Bodhi, for helping out. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope that we make a new one in future with a few more things that might help you out. Please leave any comments or suggestions in the comments. I'm very curious on what building tips you guys might have as well. Have a good day. Bye-bye.